You know the feeling, right? You just want to buy a coffee, and then the cashier turns that little tablet around, and bam, there it is. A choice: 18, 20, or 25%. That one tiny, kind of awkward moment is actually the tip of the iceberg for a huge, complicated shift in how we pay for things and who we pay for them. So let's just get right to it. Why are you tipping on a $4 coffee? I mean, this question really gets to the heart of it all. Tipping used to be pretty straightforward, right? It was for sit-down restaurants, mostly, but now it feels like it's everywhere. So what is actually going on here? Well, this thing has a name. It's called tipflation. And it really got supercharged by two big things happening at once: the COVID-19 pandemic, where we all started tipping more to support essential workers, and, of course, the explosion of all this new digital payment tech. And a huge part of that technology is something called guilt tipping. It's that feeling, that social pressure you get when the employee and, let's be honest, the whole line of people behind you is watching you decide whether to hit 20% or no tip. Companies like Square made these tablets everywhere, and that awkward pressure, that's not a bug, it's a feature. Okay, but to really understand why that pressure even works, why it's there in the first place, we've got to look at the economic system that's running in the background. For millions of workers in the US, tips aren't just a nice little bonus. They are absolutely essential for survival. This number. This is at the very heart of the entire issue. Under federal law in the United States, the minimum cash wage for a tipped employee is just $2.13 an hour. No, that is not a typo. The entire system is built on the idea that your tips will make up the difference to get that worker to the full federal minimum wage, which is $7.25. And because of this law, we basically have two different Americas when it comes to tipping. In some states, like California or Washington, employers have to pay the full state minimum wage, and any tips you give are just extra on top. But in a lot of other states, employers can use what's called a tip credit, and that means they only have to pay that rock-bottom $2.13 cash wage because they're legally allowed to count on your tips to cover the rest. Now, when you have a system where a worker's income is decided moment by individual customers, well, it opens the door to a really, really uncomfortable problem. It means that unconscious bias can directly impact someone's paycheck. And this isn't just a theory. A major study from Cornell University laid it all out. What they found was that customers, both Black and white, tended to tip Black service workers less than white service workers. And here's the crucial part. They found this after they statistically adjusted for how customers rated the quality of the service. So the data showed it wasn't about better or worse service. The difference was about race. And looking at the data, that this wasn't just a random occurrence. It was a statistically significant effect. What that suggests is a widespread systemic bias that directly hurts the wages of Black service workers, no matter how good they are at their jobs. The researchers' conclusion from all this was incredibly powerful. They basically argued that because tipping has such a different impact on people based on their race, the whole practice, when it's used as a core part of compensation, might actually violate U.S. employment discrimination law. So, as we were already grappling with all of these long-standing issues, the pandemic hit. And it just completely scrambled everything. It didn't just speed up tipiflation, it totally changed how we tip and even why we tip. To really figure this out, some researchers dove into a massive set of payment data from all over the country. They basically compared tipping habits before and during the pandemic to see exactly what changed. And the results were pretty surprising. Tips for delivery drivers and for places like coffee shops, quick service spots, they actually went up. People wanted to show their appreciation for frontline workers. But get this, tips at full-service sit-down restaurants actually went down by 1 to 2 percentage points. So what on earth happened? The study points to a pretty straightforward explanation. With dining rooms closed, all those full-service restaurants basically became high-end takeout joints. And, historically, we're just way less likely to leave a big tip for takeout. It looks like that old habit was stronger than the new desire to tip more during the crisis. So where does that leave us today? We've got a system built on a two-tiered, often confusing wage structure. It's influenced by our own unconscious biases, and it just got completely turned upside down by a global pandemic. It's really no wonder that so many of us are just feeling completely burnt out by the whole thing. And yep, there's a name for that feeling too. It's called tipping fatigue. It's that mix of resentment, confusion, and pressure that just hits you when you're being asked to tip for things that never required a tip before. That swiveling tablet has really become the mascot for this new era. And all of this leads to a central conflict. On one hand, you have millions of workers who absolutely depend on these tips to pay their bills. On the other hand, you have customers who are so overwhelmed that one poll found that 60% of Americans just want to get rid of tipping completely. Which brings us to the big, crucial question. We're looking at a system that creates real financial instability for workers and this growing sense of fatigue and resentment for customers. It's a system with deep, complicated roots, and now it feels like it's being stretched to its breaking point. So, is it time to rethink tipping altogether? And what would that even look like?